Well, let's now shift over to the last two, the group and the for each loop. So the for loop and the for each loop, I know they have similar names, but they're really quite different. The for loop you're going to use when you have a known number of times you need to execute. Like you populate a variable with the number 5 and you want to iterate through 5 times. The for each loop is when you have a collection of things, and for each item in the collection, you want to A, gather something about that collection, and then B, pass that information that you gathered to a task or a set of tasks and execute that task. Let me give you an idea of what I mean. Let's take a look at the for each loop here. So I'm just going to, again, not worrying about keeping these for you because later on we're going to go through more detailed examples. So I'm not saving the packages or anything here. So I'm going to go over here to my toolbox, which is suspiciously absent of tools. There we go. Drag the for each loop onto here. Now, pretty simply, I think what we'll do, we'll start out doing a files in a folder type of an iteration. So let's do this. Let's go to the C drive. Let's go to make a new folder, call it iterations. Go in there and let's just create a couple of text files. So this is customers.txt and employees.txt and something else.txt, blah, 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 blah.txt. So we've got 3 text files. So what we need to do is, depending on how many files are in this folder, we need to execute a task, and each time we need to take the name of that file and pass that to a task so that we can load that text file into SQL Server. Now see, right there, I know that this is a for each loop instead of a for loop. You see, to use a for loop, you need one piece of information. How many times do you need to execute? To use a for each loop, it's 2 pieces of information. How many times do you want to execute, and what is the value you want to pass to the underlying tasks? So since I said, well, I want to execute it forever, however many files are in this folder, that satisfied number 1, so we want 3 times. But because I have to take the name of each file and pass it to the tasks within the container, that's that second piece of information, and it now has to be a for each loop. Okay? So let's do something similar. So I'm going to just double click here, or you can right click and say edit. And I'm going to choose the collection over here. And the collection, there's a lot of different types of connections that you have. We're going to deal with the file enumerator. But there are ones in here to where we can actually hook up to SQL Server, run a query for each value, each row that comes back in the query. Then we can pass values from that to the tasks inside the container. We can have a variable that stores rows in it. There's a lot of different techniques. We could use SMO. I'm going to use the for each file at this level here. So let's just start with the for each file enumerator. Forget about expressions, we'll cover those later. And here down at the bottom is a so easy enumerator configuration. Here's my folder, here's the files. Cool. So I grab it. So we go to our iterations folder. And I can say, you know what, I only want these types of files. So I could say, I don't care how many files are in there, I only want .text. You can get much more defined in here. You can specify that I only want files that match a certain pattern. Like I've done this before where I only want things that look like that. So if there's multiple files, there's customers.txt, wouldn't show up. If it doesn't begin with emp and end with .txt, it would not get collected in this case. Okay, so this is very similar to DOS. So if you understand your question marks and your asterisk here for DOS, that's all this really is. It's very simple to write the wildcards and such. But so I'm going to say just star.star. When you retrieve the file name, what is it that you want to pass to the task. You see, so we're going to be able to collect the information about this file. So there's 3 files. What is it you want to return? Do you want to return C:\\\, iterations, \customers.txt? That's what fully qualified is. Path and file name and extension. Or do you just want the name and extension, customers.txt? Or do you just want the name, customers? Okay, so you choose. And do you want to traverse the subfolders? Now, there's no option there for traversing only 3 subfolders. You either traverse them or you don't. Generally, I'm working in a root right there, but I say okay. Now, remember I said there are 2 parts to this. The first part is the number of iterations, and the second part is the information about this item in the collection, right? So we're doing a file. So what it will do is we're going to make a new variable, and we're going to call this variable the file name. Again, don't worry so much about variables. We're going to go through very, very detailed use of the for loop container with files. We're going to use that multiple times in the course. So don't sweat it, okay, right now. I'm just kind of glossing over it here. So file name, it's a string, I say okay, and it's index 0. This is the important piece. Now this file thing, this is what it's going to bring back as whatever I've chosen right here. So whichever one of these that I've chosen, I said fully qualified, it's going to populate the variable with this value. Okay? So remember that I said fully qualified. It's index 0. If we had a data set where we were writing a query and there were multiple columns coming back, and we wanted to take the value of this column, we could store it in that variable, and then we could take the value of this column and store it in another variable. And that's why we would have the option for multiple variables and indexes. This is the first column in the collection, if you will. That's what the index 0 means. But that's really it. I have now defined both sets of things. How many times I want to loop through, and that how many times is however many files are in this folder. And then number 2, I want to collect the fully qualified file name, and I want to store it in a variable called file name. Sweet. Here we go. And real quickly, I'm just going to drag a script task into the container, double click on it. I'm going to identify that my read-only variable is called file name. It is case sensitive. And I'm going to edit my script. And in case you're a little bit squeamish about doing this, you can see that it does have instructions on how to access a variable here in code. So it's really not that challenging to do so. Notice it does say it's case sensitive though. So that's all I have to do. I just copy and paste this. I have to know a little bit. If I want to use C#, I need to know messagebox.show, and then I can just paste, and it ends with a semicolon. Don't sweat it if you like VB. I'll show you plenty of VB later. I just happened to pick C# at this point because it was the code sample right there. It was the default. The variable name is file name. Okay, and I just need to tell it now this is a string. Is that why I'm getting my red squiggly? That was it. It was an object. So I save it, get out of the VSTA, and I say OK. And I now execute the package, and I'm just going to get a pop-up, and you notice that it shows the full path, the file name, and the extension. And so customers.txt, employees.txt, and it ended. Now let's back up here for just a second. Could I have done that with a for loop? No. The for loop doesn't allow me to grab the information from the item in a collection, i.e. the file name, and pass that to the underlying tasks. I had to use a for loop in that case. And you saw how easy it was, right? All right, so again, don't sweat it. We're going to go through many cases in this course where we use this for loop. So we're going to see a lot more about variables and expressions and for loops and script tasks. Just stick with me here. We're going to cover the rest of that.